Ladies and gentlemen, we have a jam-packed episode for you today. We have the long-awaited return of studs and duds. We have results from both Major League Fishing and Bassmaster to cover. The fishing industry lost a legend, and we answer your questions about spinnerbaits versus underspins, locating fish in the spring and the fall, and so much more on today's episode of Tackle Talk.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Dance, and you're listening to Tackle Talk.
This is the Tackle Talk Podcast, brought to you by American Legacy Fishing and Outdoors. World-class fishing gear, unmatched personal service. Now, here's your host, Andrew Hayes.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Tackle Talk Podcast. As always, we are brought to you by American Legacy Fishing and Outdoors. And AmericanLegacyFishing.com is my favorite place to check for brand new rods, reels, line, baits, whatever you could need for your fishing adventures. But not only new gear, they also have the internet's best selection of gently used fishing gear too. And not only can you go over there and buy used fishing gear at a great discounted rate, you can also trade in your fishing gear that you don't want for credit toward the gear that you actually do want with the nation's easiest trade-in program. So you go on the website, you tell them what gear you would like to trade in, you get a quote within 24 hours sent right to you, and then if you agree on that price, you ship your gear to them, and they give you an instant credit to be used on the website at any given time. It is so simple, it's so streamlined, it is easy, and you can turn that pile of rods or reels that have been sitting in your garage or your spare room or your shed or whatever into credit for the gear that you actually want to buy from ALF. It's awesome. But all of that from a great Midwestern tackle shop right there in southern Indiana. They're family owned. They care about you. They want to make sure they get the best fishing gear in your hands at the best price with the best service on the internet. So go check them out, www.americanlegacyfishing.com. And as always, you can use code TACKLETALK5. That's going to save you 5% on not only regularly priced items, but also sale items. Take an extra 5% off on us just for listening to the show. That's code TACKLETALK5 over at www.americanlegacyfishing.com. Okay, folks, first up here, a sad bit of news. The bass fishing world lost a legend this past week as Pam Martin Wells passed away at age 62. So the article and the statement here from Bassmaster over on their website says, Pam Martin Wells, a groundbreaking professional angler whose skill, determination, and trailblazing spirit shattered barriers for women in competitive bass fishing, passed away on April 11th, 2025. Widely regarded as one of the most influential female anglers in history, Martin Wells didn't just fish, she reshaped the narrative of who belonged on the sport's biggest stages. In 2010, she made history by qualifying for and competing in the Bassmaster Classic, the most prestigious event in bass fishing. Her presence on that stage marked a defining moment, proving to the world that competitive fishing knows no gender, only talent, passion, and grit. Throughout her celebrated career, Martin Wells amassed dozens of wins and top finishes in women's and co-ed circuits alike. She holds 32 individual national championships, 10 Angler of the Year titles, and was inducted into the Legends of Outdoors Hall of Fame, but her legacy transcends trophies. She was a mentor, a role model, and a fierce advocate for the next generation of female anglers. Her success cracked open doors that had long been closed, and she walked through them with grace, tenacity, and a rod in her hand. Born in Bainbridge, Georgia, Pam discovered her love of fishing at an early age. That childhood passion turned into a lifelong pursuit, leading her to the top of the sport that was, for decades, dominated by men. She approached every weigh-in and fishery with the same unshakable confidence and quiet strength that inspired countless others to follow in her footsteps. So that sums things up pretty nicely there. Pam was a huge influence, especially to women that wanted to get into bass fishing, and that's something that I think everybody should get behind. I mean, we've seen it the past few years with initiatives like the Bassmaster Her program with Christine, Maggie, and Anastasia over there that took off and really makes an impact for young women that want to get into fishing. And having role models like that, like Pam Martin Wells, like Christine, like Maggie, like Anastasia, people like that, people that aren't aren't just models posing with a fish in their hand to pander to the fishing world, but actual women that want to fish, they want to get better, they want to compete, they want to learn. That's something that is taking off, and Pam Martin Wells helped forge that path. So it's very sad. We're praying for her and her family, her husband Steven, and everybody that she touched and influenced over the years. Okay, folks, next up here, I know we're a week late on this one. I apologize, but with our episode last week with Easton, that means the results from Major League Fishing's Red Crest got pushed back a week here. So I know a lot of you have already seen the results. You've probably followed it if you care that much. So we're going to really quickly cover this here. Your top 10 from Red Crest this year on the Major League Fishing side were 10th place Bobby Lane, 9th place Ron Nelson, 8th went to David Dudley, 7th Brent Ayler, 6th went to Chris Lane, 5th Jake Lawrence, 4th went to Paul Marks Jr., 3rd, Zach Burge, 2nd was Wesley Strader, and 1st place going back-to-back in 2024 and now 2025 with his Red Crest titles and his 3rd Red Crest title in 5 years, Dustin Connell. So Dustin Connell, the Red Crest killer, defends his title at Red Crest in 2025. And I mean, there have only been, I think, 7 Red Crest championships in history, obviously because Major League Fishing is relatively new. Dustin now has 3 of those 7. It's incredible what he's been able to do year after year at this specific event. And it's not like he has one specific body of water or one specific area really dialed and he just keeps coming back to and winning Red Crest. Red Crest, like the Bassmaster Classic and like a lot of other big title championships, changes locations every year. So there's just something about this event and the importance of it that DC turns it on for. And Dustin won this event in a way that people like me loved watching. Dustin made a ridiculous run from their starting location on Gunnersville in Alabama all the way up the river, like I don't remember how long it was. I think it was like 70 miles or something ridiculous, up to the Nickajack Dam in Tennessee. My dude crossed state lines. That's how far his run was to get to the spot that he wanted to fish. And he went up and he fished that dam. He got up in that current, that fast moving water. He found where those fish would group up and he chased them around. Basically with like no forward-facing sonar, just regular good old bass fishing. And what was even cooler was to watch how he would follow these fish around based on how much or how little water was being released at any given time from the dam, and how that current would run right by certain walls, or because the current changes, because there's more water coming out of the dam, that would make those fish move. And he was really good at patterning those fish, staying on them where they would move throughout the day based on the flow. So that was awesome. And that dam is massive. So it takes skill to pick that dam apart. It's not like you just go up and throw in the white water like some random tiny lowhead dam that we would fish around here. You really have to know what you're doing. Very cool to watch him dissect that whole thing. And he was catching largemouth, spots, smallmouth, you name it, mixed bag palooza. Very, very cool to see. Again, a huge congratulations to Dustin Connell, your 2025 Major League Fishing Red Crest champion. All right, next up here, we just had a Bassmaster Elite Series event finish as well, like 2 hours before I'm recording this. So they are fresh results here. Obviously, they'll be a little bit older when you guys listen to this on Tuesday, but the 2025 St. Croix Bassmaster Elite at the Pasquotank River in Elizabeth City, North Carolina just wrapped up April 10th through 13th. And what was really cool is this is a fishery that, at least to my knowledge, I believe, the Bassmaster Elite Series has never been to. So we got to see a brand new fishery, completely untapped for the Elite Series, and boy, did it put out results. It did not disappoint. So your top 10 from this event: 10th place went to Kyle Patrick, 9th went to Shane LaHue, 8th went to Seth Fighter, 7th place Tyler Williams, 6th place Justin Hamner, 5th went to Keith Combs, 4th was Easton Fothergill, 3rd Trey McKinney, 2nd place Brandon Lester, and 1st place absolute domination, the likes of which we have never seen before. We will get to that here in a second. But first place, the blue trophy, goes to Kyle Welcher. So yeah, Kyle Welcher, I'm going to try and quantify this and make you guys understand how big of a victory this was. Kyle Welcher weighed in over those 4 days 118 pounds and 12 ounces. Again, this is Bassmaster. This is 5-fish format. All these guys have the ability to catch 20 fish from start to finish if they make the championship round. Kyle did that, and he caught 118 pounds and 12 ounces. Second place, who also caught 20 fish, was 73 pounds and 5 ounces. So if we do some really quick math here, that means that Kyle Welcher won by 45 pounds and 7 ounces, absolutely destroying the old record for margin of victory that I think was like 29 pounds. I think that was Patrick Walters before. That record stands no more. Kyle Welcher with a 45 pound and 7 ounce margin of victory over second place was just jaw-dropping. I mean, in bass fishing with a 5-fish format, that does not happen. This was also the 13th highest total weight ever in Bassmaster Elite Series history, so a record-breaking performance by Kyle Welcher. Now, I had to work this whole weekend, so I didn't really get to watch this event too much. I was at the baseball stadium, but from what I was able to see, it basically looked like Kyle had found this spot in practice that didn't really pan out for him in practice because there weren't many or any fish there, but he hit it at just the right time, where just because there weren't fish there in practice doesn't mean there weren't going to be fish there a couple days later, because this is such a volatile time of year. I mean, those fish are moving up to spawn. So if you can find an area where those fish haven't got to yet, but they are coming to you all 4 days of competition, which is what it seemed like was happening for Kyle, you just hit the jackpot. That is like as good a spot as you are going to find on this lake, and obviously the weights showed it. So congratulations to Kyle. He wins $100,000. He gets his first blue trophy, his first career win. Now, you'll remember 2 years ago, he was Angler of the Year. That's an important trophy too, but everybody wants that blue trophy if you're fishing the Bassmaster Elite Series. Kyle now has it. Congratulations to Kyle Welcher, your 2025 Bassmaster Elite Series champion at the Pasquotank River. All right, everybody. Next up here, we are bringing it back to our roots here at Tackle Talk. We used to do this segment quite frequently back in the day, and we've brought it back very sparingly over the past maybe 2-3 years. We'll bring it in every now and then, but today we're going to dive into another installment of Studs and Duds. Now, the concept of this conversation is very simple. With fishing tackle, like with anything else in the world, there are winners and there are losers, and that's the two categories that we are putting these two baits in today. Are they a stud or are they a dud? There's no middle ground. We are taking a stance, and maybe a bit of a controversial one at that. Obviously, we'll get to that here in a little bit, because I can guarantee there are going to be some of you out there that love the bait that we end up labeling a dud today, and some of you might hate the bait that we label a stud today. But that's the really fun part about fishing gear in a nutshell, is that everybody has their preferences, and I think anyway, as long as you have a sound reason why you have that opinion on a certain piece of gear, then that's all you can ask for. So if you've thought through your position and why you don't or do like a certain piece of gear or a certain rod or reel or whatever, and you stand behind that decision based on actual experience with that gear out on the water, then I respect it. Even if it's the polar opposite of what I believe, I respect you having that opinion because you put the time in with that piece of gear. And everybody who buys gear is also buying the right to say what they want about that gear. I firmly believe that. That's kind of the cornerstone of what we built Tackle Talk around, is I buy almost all of my gear just like you guys do, because I feel like that's the price of admission. If I buy that gear, no one is expecting me to talk good about it or to sing its praises, or, you know, there's some sponsorship contract or whatever. No, it's like, I went to the store, I picked this up, I paid with my own money, I get to say what I think about it. So that's what we're going to do here today. Let's jump right in. We're going to start with the good. So today our stud is going to be the Battle Baits Brigade Blade. Now, I can already hear some of you. Andrew, you've mentioned this bait on the show before. You've had the owner on the Breaking the Mold series, a couple months back to talk about the minigun. This bait hasn't been out very long. People can't even buy them because they sell out in like 2 minutes on the website whenever he drops new ones. Trust me, I know they're hard to get. I know they're new, but let me just tell you, I have spent the past probably 3 weeks now throwing the Brigade Blade, and not only that, but throwing it side by side with chatterbaits, jackhammers, slobber knockers, spinner baits, you name it. And this little bait is very, very cool. So it's essentially a small compact spinnerbait, except the spot where you would normally have your traditional willow blade or Colorado blade at the end of that spinnerbait, there is instead a very small willow blade, almost like a teaser blade, the size that you might see on like an underspin or something. Just a very small blade where that traditional blade would be. And then at the bend where you would normally like direct tie, there's another fluted kind of diamond blade that's actually attached to both arms of the spinnerbait wire with a hole that goes through that blade on either side, and then the wire goes through it. So it's not attached by like a clevis or anything like that. The wire actually goes through this blade at two different pieces, two different holes in that blade, and that's where it kind of stays secured on this kind of spinnerbait wire mold type deal. So it is kind of in the realm of like a spinnerbait chatterbait hybrid, with the primary action actually coming from that front blade, like that big, fluted blade that's attached to the wires. That's where your primary action comes from. And then that secondary action comes from that little teaser blade at the back where you would normally have your regular blade, or from your trailer. So my absolute favorite thing about this brigade blade is that unlike a chatterbait where you sometimes have to, I guess I'm going to do air quotes here, start it up, where you like give it a pop, or you have to reel at a certain speed to get that blade to fire up and then stay constant and keep going. With this brigade blade, any speed, any cadence, it does not matter how subtle or how hard you pull this bait, that blade is going to rock back and forth like it's supposed to because of the way this bait is designed. It doesn't really have a choice because it's connected at those two pieces on the wire. If there is water moving by this bait at all, that blade will move. So much so that the blade actually vibrates on the fall, not just when you're reeling it. And that is something a chatterbait does not do. So that's a really cool feature of this bait too. You can almost flip this bait and really kind of milk it on the way down before you actually start reeling and you do your kind of normal cadence there. It's also more of, I guess what I would call a shudder blade, like S-H-U-D-D-E-R, shudder, versus like a flapping or spinning or chopping blade action. So it's a different motion than you see from a spinnerbait or a vibrating jig. And I think that's awesome because you're getting something that the fish around you probably haven't seen before. And I saw it firsthand because I took this bait to a very pressured pond and I threw a traditional chatterbait, a jackhammer, and the brigade blade. And I probably caught 4 or 5 fish on identical casts where I didn't get a hit on a chatterbait, but I got hit on the brigade blade. And I think there's just a lot of benefit to a different movement, a different sound or vibration that those fish aren't used to seeing, like they are seeing 1,000 chatterbaits a day or 1,000 spinnerbaits a day. I think it makes a difference. So I ended up putting a very skinny, straight trailer on it versus a big swim bait or a big paddle tail. That seemed to be my preference. I also like because how this blade is attached to the wires, it actually keeps this bait from bending out like a lot of other traditional spinnerbaits will after a couple fish catches. This bait doesn't really have a choice. It almost can't bend out because that blade is protecting the integrity of that wire. It's just a bait that I truly think will stay in my box for quite a while. It's unique. Yes, it looks a little weird. I understand that. But when you look at this, you might think, oh, that's kind of a gimmick or that's a weird thing. I really think this is a bait that I'll be tossing quite a bit over the next year or two and really keeping in my spinnerbait and my chatterbait box with a bunch of other things. So it's something that I can probably say with a lot of certainty that a lot of the fish in your area, wherever you're listening to this, probably haven't seen. Definitely worth picking up a few if you can get your hands on them. And that is the problem at the moment. So Flint over at Battle Baits seems like he's been trying to build them throughout the week and then kind of drop them on Fridays. So I would recommend you go over to the website, sign up for like in-stock notifications or follow him on social media. He usually seems to do a pretty good job of giving people a heads up when he's going to drop them. So that is our stud today for this episode, the Battle Baits Brigade Blade. Okay, now it's time to switch gears here, and we have to get to our dud. And this one, I think, is going to be controversial. And I'm well aware, I'm ready for the smoke, I'm ready to defend my take here, but our dud today is going to be the new Z-Man Baby Jack. And I'm going to preface this by saying that a lot of you listening might like or love the Baby Jack if you try it. But how I fish and where I fish, I was kind of disappointed in it. So the Baby Jack is like a mini version of the Z-Man Jackhammer, which is the best-selling bladed jig by far on the market. It's the gold standard of bladed jigs currently. If you look at people on tour, you look at people who are out there fishing for money, even if they're not sponsored, those people are typically throwing jackhammers. Now, fast forward to the Classic this year, and Z-Man releases the Baby Jack, which is a smaller, more compact version of the regular jackhammer. And this Baby Jack features a custom 3/0 decoy hook, dual wire trailer keepers, and a downsized stainless steel chatterbait blade. And now we've seen a downsized chatterbait before in the Minimax, which is a bait that I absolutely love. Now, the Minimax is even smaller. It's got like a 2/0 hook in it, I believe, versus the Baby Jack's 3/0, but both come in similar weights and similar colors and all that kind of stuff. But for some reason, when I took this Baby Jack out, and like always, I paid $17 for this thing, as much as it hurt me, but I wanted to try one. So I took it out, I threw it in the river in situations that I would have normally thrown a regular chatterbait, a regular jackhammer, or a Minimax, and this Baby Jack misfired, or the blade wouldn't stay consistent in many of those same situations where the others worked fine. So it was really frustrating. I don't know what it was. It seemed like this Baby Jack just doesn't like current as much as its regular jackhammer big brother. I don't know if it's the blade size. I didn't measure it, but it looks pretty close to the Minimax, so I'm kind of confused why this one doesn't seem to fire up and stay constant as much as the regular Minimax does. But in my opinion, it does not have the consistency of that thump or that back and forth action that a regular jackhammer or regular chatterbait has. So for me, in fast water, I'm pulling this thing through current seams, I'm throwing in the main current and then pulling it back to eddies, or I'm throwing it up in the white water or below riffles or whatever. It just flat out did not perform like I thought it should have compared to other baits from Z-Man that I already own that seem to work even better. The Baby Jack costs twice as much as a Minimax and performs worse, and that to me earns you a dud. Now, I will say I'm kind of interested, and I might fall into the trap here, I guess, in the Evo Minimax. And again, they're just throwing baby chatterbaits at us left and right here, but it's basically the same price as the regular Minimax, so I'm not really sure, again, what the big difference in all of these is, but they obviously understand we want downsized chatterbaits. They're giving it to us, but now we have the regular Minimax, the Evo Minimax, and the Baby Jack, all with a smaller blade, a more compact hook, and just giving you a little bit more of a downsized option. But for me, I think I'm going to stick with the regular Minimax. It's half the price, and I'm just in the camp right now of it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the Minimax is great. It's our little cheat code around here. It's one of our secret weapons. I just don't think the Baby Jack lived up to the hype or even surpassed its less expensive predecessor. So your dud today, for me anyway, is going to be the Z-Man Baby Jack. Okay, so there you go. There's our edition today of Studs and Duds. Congratulations to the BattleBaits Brigade Blade, and better luck next time to the Z-Man Baby Jack. Okay, folks, we'll get back to the episode here in just a second, but first we have big news. We teased it a few weeks ago, but it's finally here, the Tackle Talk Bass Essentials box from Dark Horse Tackle. So very simply, the boys over at DHT and I teamed up to build what I think is the ultimate box full of what I would call my essential baits. So the types of baits that I'm not going to leave home without almost any time of year, and it's a one-time purchase. This is not some subscription deal. This is a one-time limited edition box curated by yours truly to make sure that I had everything in there that I thought would make up a well-rounded, value-packed box for beginners, for intermediate anglers, and for tournament guys alike. Now, I'm not going to spoil completely anyway what's in the box because I want there to be some bit of surprise for you guys when you actually buy this thing, but I'm going to tell you the types of baits that you're going to get in this box and what you can expect. In this box, you're going to get a pack of tungsten weights, not lead, premium, actual tungsten. You're going to get a flipping jig, a bladed jig, a buzz bait, a pack of swim baits, a popper, a square bill, a spinner bait, soft plastic craws, soft plastic stick baits, swimming jig heads, offset worm hooks, wide gap wacky rig hooks, a gift card to DHT, and more, all for $79.99. So coming in at under $80. And if you've ever spent money on a tackle site, you know how fast you can rack up $80. You get everything I just mentioned for under $80. And I want to make this very, very clear. I make absolutely $0 off of this. I'm not doing this to try and make money. We're doing this because one of the most frequent questions any beginner or mid-level angler has is, how do I build a complete tackle box? Or even if you're just starting out, where do I start? And we wanted this box to kind of be the answer to that. So it has everything that I would call the essentials. Now, are there other things you can add to this box? You bet you can. But for someone that's just starting to take bass fishing seriously, or looking to build their first complete tackle box, or on the flip side, someone who just wants to have a one-time purchase to really beef up their current tackle box with some awesome baits from some great small tackle companies, all of which, except for the hooks, are right here in the United States. This is a really cool box that we've been working on for the better part of a couple months now. So all of that is available over on darkhorsetackle.com. They're great guys, a really cool business shining the spotlight on small, independent American tackle companies, and I was excited to team up with them to build this box just as sort of an ultimate bass essentials box for you guys. So they're first come, first serve. We're doing a limited run of them over there now. You can go pre-order them starting today over at www.darkhorsetackle.com to make sure you get one just in case they sell out. It's right there on the homepage, or if you click Dark Horse Tackle Boxes at the top of the page, it's one of the choices there too. The Tackle Talk Bass Essentials box from the boys over at Dark Horse Tackle. Okay, and finally here, let's crack open some mailbag questions and answer a few of your questions that you've submitted over on the Tackle Talk website. So the first question here is going to be from Ethan. He says, "Hello, Andrew. My name is Ethan, and I live between the Great Lakes and Finger Lakes region of Western New York. When would you use a spinnerbait versus an underspin? I prefer an underspin, but what conditions should I switch it up in? Love the show. Keep up the amazing work." Thanks, Ethan. Appreciate it, man. And thanks for the question. So this probably isn't for everybody, but for me, I guess, if you give me the choice between a spinnerbait and an underspin, I guess I'll try and break it down in a few different categories. So let's start with like wind. With wind, I'm going to lean on a regular spinnerbait more in wind and an underspin in calmer water. I would say in depth, I'm typically going to pick up an underspin in deeper water and then a spinnerbait in shallower water. As far as clarity goes, I'm going to pick up a spinnerbait in dirtier or stained water and an underspin in clearer water. I would say like time of day, I really like spinnerbaits at night a lot more than I do underspins. A big Colorado blade like spinnerbait at night, especially in the summertime, absolutely kills. If I want to go like time of year, I'll probably go traditional spinnerbait most of the year, except in winter, I'll go more of an underspin. Also, an underspin is a sneaky fall bait when those fish are keyed in on smaller bait. So that's something to think about, I guess, too. They both deserve a place in your box in the fall time. But overall, I just think I'm going to pick up an underspin when I'm in more finessey situations, when I'm in deeper, clearer, calmer water, all that kind of stuff. I'm also going to pick up an underspin when I want to throw just a regular swim bait, like a little paddle tail, but for some reason or another, I just want a little bit more flash or drawing power. But at the end of the day, I think they both deserve to be in your box, and it's just more, again, like you said, situational driven versus picking one or the other a lot of times. They both play their role. It's not like someone should be an underspin guy or a spinnerbait guy. You should definitely have both. Okay, next question is from Ben, and he says, "Hey, Andrew, I have a question. So how much of your presentation represents practice, preparation, and rehearsal versus a gift? You chose podcasts. Was that something that you knew you'd be good at, or did you go into it knowing you had a lot of room for growth with regards to public speaking? How would you compare your nerves on the Bass Livecast at the Classic to talking into a mic in your bedroom? Are there any tips or tricks you've learned to be more polished with your presentation, regardless of being live or pre-recorded?" That's an interesting one. That's definitely more about like the podcast side than the fishing side, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that can probably relate to having to speak in public. So first off, I guess I would say, and I'm dead serious, that I am not that good at this. And I definitely was not good at this before I started. And Ben, you kind of hinted, and you're kind of on the right track there and almost suggested it. I chose podcasting specifically and to do an audio show only early on because it played to my strengths and it allowed me to hide my weaknesses. So my strengths are that I have some past experience with audio editing software and microphones and audio quality and all that sort of stuff because I was in a lot of bands growing up. I played guitar. I was pretty decent at like recording music on that side of things. So I knew my way around audio equipment and editing, but at the time, YouTube was also taking off. And I knew that I wasn't good at video editing or doing video or shooting that in general. I just knew that I was good at audio. So that drew me to podcasts. Also, I knew that I wanted to put on the most professional show that I could, and doing a podcast that wasn't live allowed me to prepare, to record, to do post-editing, to hide all of those imperfections. So what you end up hearing today on Tuesday is the combination of over-preparation and a lot of post-editing to remove any sort of filler or mistakes or fluff or pauses so that you get a really streamlined, professional show to listen to. Trust me, this thing is not one take. This is not off the cuff. Like, I am not as good at this as the final product ends up sounding. And that was obviously by design. I knew that was the goal. I wanted to make a very, very professional show, or at least the most professional show that I could. And to do that, I knew that I could not do live. I knew that I had to prepare. I had to be able to edit. And it takes a lot of extra effort, but that extra effort is worth it to me to hide all of my imperfections and my weaknesses so that you guys kind of aren't any the wiser and you get a professional show, a much more professional show than I think I should have any right putting out. So there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. Don't think that I'm by any means perfect, because I am far, far, far from it. I just hide it from you all. And yes, to your point, that was by design from day one. I knew that. But even with that knowledge, if you go back and listen to like episode 1 and then listen to this episode now, it is very different. And that's because over 5.5 years now, you learn a lot. And I have, I think, hopefully anyway, gotten better at speaking and communicating, and doing this show obviously helped me improve all of that a little bit. And obviously I know I still have a long way to go, but I'm still working on it. So then fast forward to this year, you asked about doing like live things. That's a totally different world for me, because honestly, it's something that makes me nervous, is doing things off the cuff and live and in the moment. You can't start over. You can't over prepare because it's happening in real time. You can't completely plan everything out and control everything like I really like to do. But I also appreciate that it makes me step out of my comfort zone a little bit and try some new things, and that's exciting to me too. But yeah, I think the whole reason that this Tackle Talk thing has worked is because it played to my strengths and allowed me to hide my weaknesses from you all. And again, that definitely wasn't by accident. Okay, our next question here is from Jeremiah, and he says, "Hey Andrew, this is Jeremiah. I'm wondering what gear ratio to what technique I should use." Okay, so let's give the whole rundown here, and this will be really fast because it's really not that hard, at least in my mind. Other people might disagree. This is how I lay out my gear ratios for my bait casters. So 5-to-1 or 6-to-1, our slow reels, those are going to be for cranking for me. On my crankbait rods, you will find the slowest reels that I own, especially deep cranking. The slower, the better for me. I mean, I do have some 5-to-1s, which like they don't even really make anymore. It seems like everybody's like 6, 7, and 8, but if you have a 5 or a 6, that should be the reel, at least for me, that I'm going to put on my cranking rod. Next, you have your 7-to-1s, and those are what we're going to call our happy mediums. They're not too fast, they're not too slow. You can do almost anything with a 7-to-1 gear ratio reel. Is it the best ratio for every technique? Well, that's debatable, obviously, but it can wear a lot of hats. So in my opinion, 7-to-1 is the most versatile ratio of the lot. I think chatterbaits, spinnerbaits, topwaters, jerk baits, a lot of baits fall into that realm for me of 7-to-1. And then you have your 8-to-1s or your faster reels. And these for me are for techniques where I need to pick up a lot of line quickly, or I need to avoid slack. So for me, that's going to be frogging, it's going to be flipping, it's going to be Texas rigs. And funny enough, the past couple of years, I've really found that I like fast reels for glide baits and big swim baits, because it just takes less of a turn of that handle to get that same darting action or that same movement. But that's how I utilize my gear ratios. Really simple. I don't want to drag this out too long. I wanted to make this as quick as possible. For me, slow reels are for cranking, fast reels are for frogging, flipping, Texas rigs, and big baits, and 7-1 is the middle ground that almost everything else falls in for me. Okay, and the last question here is from Levi. Levi says, "Hey man, I've been listening to the podcast at work the past couple weeks. Love the podcast and all the different content you're releasing. I live in western North Carolina. The main river we fish, we catch a bunch of fish during the summer on jigs, swim baits, and spinners. In the early spring, like March and April, and fall time, like October and November, we struggle to catch fish. Due to water temps changing is my guess. What tips and baits would you recommend for spring and fall smallmouth? Any tips would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, Levi." Hey, Levi, thanks for the question. This is obviously right up my alley, so I think I should hopefully be able to give you a good one on this. I think it's interesting because if you can catch fish in the summer, but not in the spring and the fall, that's kind of weird to me because both spring and fall should be dynamite times a year for river smallmouth. So my gut reaction says you're just in the wrong areas in the spring and in the fall. And I wish I knew what river you were on, not because obviously, smart of you not to say it because we try not to blow up any water on this show, but I wish for me I knew what it was on so that I could look at a map and see how it lays out to see if what I'm about to say is true. But around here, the areas that those big fish are in the summer is not the areas where they're at right now, and it's not the areas that they're at in the dead of fall. Those fish move this time of year to high traffic, high flow feeding areas. So dams, riffles, rock ledges, natural barriers in the river that prevent them from going up any farther, they're probably there. They push up to those areas because it's just a bait buffet for them. Then in the summer, they seem to fall back to that slower, deeper water or submerged structure, or more like, I guess, what I would probably call like their home base. But in the spring and in the fall, it's high action ambush areas are where they want to be. So it sounds like you've found them in the summer would be my guess. Now you just need to find where those fish move to in the spring and the fall. So I'm guessing it's just a location thing. All right, that is our episode today. Thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate you all as always. Go find us on the website, tackletalkpodcast.com. There you can submit your own mailbag question for your chance to be heard on an upcoming episode. You can also check out the shop. We have shirts, we have mugs, we have all kinds of stuff over there. If you guys want to help and support the show, we'd appreciate that. Go find us on Instagram and Facebook. If you can, leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. We would appreciate that as well. And as always, we'll see you right back here next Tuesday for another brand new episode of Tackle Talk.
Thank you for listening to the Tackle Talk podcast. Tackle Talk is produced by Andrew Hayes. Copyright 2019. For more, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.